Hi everyone, my name is Anangsha Alammyan and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a very special guest with me, and if you are on Quora, it's she writes there a lot. She is a multiple times top writer, and when I was starting out on Quora, I used to admire her answers a lot. Even now, I admire whatever work she's doing on other platforms, on Instagram and her own website, and I'm a huge fan of her. Her name is Tejasvita Apte, and she is educated as a lawyer, and currently she is working as a couples coach. And in today's chat, we're going to discuss what it takes to navigate through modern relationships. And I'm super excited to welcome Tejasvita to this chat. Hi, Tejasvita.
Hi, Anangsha. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for the
I'm
introduction.
so happy to have you here today with us.
Yeah, me too.
So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself for the audience?
Yeah, all right. So, my name is Tejasvita Apte. I'm a couples coach, a legal and a relational consultant. Um, by education, I'm trained as a lawyer in both India and in France. And later, through my own personal journey as well, I studied about couples coaching and decided to get into it full time because it's something that's always interested me. So currently, I'm working with people as they navigate through relationships and the modern challenges that we all face that we've never faced before. So that's what I do now.
That's so fascinating. So I'm just curious, how did this transition from being a writer, from a lawyer to a writer to being a speaker and now to a couples coach? So how did this whole journey happen?
Right. When you see it from a distance, right, it looks like it's very different. But within me, it's really, I mean, it's just evolved in the same line because whether as a lawyer, whether as a writer, or as a speaker, or now as a coach, I've always worked with people, and I've always been somebody who's worked in consulting. So I've always been on the other side of the table, and people have been speaking in front of me or speaking to me, and I've been speaking with them. I've been listening and I've been talking. So nothing much has changed in that respect. So earlier, if my advice was more related to documents and law, it's more about relationships now. So because this human side of those stories has always fascinated me. So it's not a huge difference for me. For example, when I was working as a lawyer or as a medical legal consultant, I was basically, a lot of my work involved family law, and a lot of my work involved medical law. So I was working with commissioning couples on one side and surrogates on the other side. A lot of my work involved counseling those two and counseling people who are filing for divorces or things like that. So not much has changed. It's just that the material has slightly changed. But working with people is something that I've always done. It's the same that way.
Okay, so it's like the core idea is the same, helping people get better
Yeah.
at relationships, like,
Yeah.
right? That's so great. So like you have been very vocal about it, right? That modern relationships are different from
Right.
how
Right.
relationships used to
Right.
be in these days. So can you tell us a little bit more about this? Like how are they different and why do you
Right.
think they are so different right now?
Right. So there are two aspects to it. This is so as a society we're going through a lot of transition, right? This is the first time that the whole narrative around marriage has changed. We are not getting married early; we are getting married late. We are having children late. Before marrying, we've had multiple relationships. Most of us have gone through dating. We've had multiple boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever, and we've worked. We've made our own money. We've made our own careers, right? So this is the first time that when we want to settle down after doing everything, we marry. So this is late 20s for most people. So now when that is happening, this is the first time that there are new challenges to navigate. For example, it was this question of money, right? If both the people are making the same kind of money, working the same kind of hours, right? Most of the modern fights that happen in front of me, most of the conflicts around money, that didn't exist before. Those questions were not open for negotiation. The roles were fixed, right? We all knew who would wake up if the baby was crying in the middle of the night. It was the mom. This was not negotiated, right? This was something that has always been very much decided. So if there was a rigidity or if there was a complete, division of roles before. What's changed is that everything is fluid now. It's negotiable. And in that respect, we are very ill equipped to deal with these kind of communications. We don't know how to negotiate that. We have no role models. We're doing it for the first time, right? So this is what is changing. So there are these models of marriages, like what is considered as a cornerstone model of marriage, which means that people married early in life and their life was around the marriage. So people got jobs after that. People created lives after marriage. Whereas now it's the opposite. It's capstone model of marriage, which means that a lot of our life is decided. We've experimented, we've dated other people, we've made our own money, we've bought our first car, we most of us have bought houses before, and then to settle down, we are married as a capstone. This is the new like capstone to our life now, right? That's a huge transition, and we're very ill-equipped to deal with that. So what I'm talking about basically is how do you navigate with these new challenges? How do you talk about these things? And how do you listen to these challenges now? So that's what I'm talking about when I say that it's transitioned a lot. So when I was going through my own separation and divorce, the advice that I was getting did not work out for me because it felt like it was meant for a different kind of marriage than mine. It's not working out for me. So that's when also this transition started, where I was thinking, okay, what am I missing here? Am I wrong? Am I thinking things wrong? What's not working out for me? How can I make it better? And then there's literature around this now that you can find and you can go through, and I was like, wow, there's a lot of changes that are happening in marriages, and we have to speak about it. We have to create a different narrative around it. The old rules don't apply. So does that make it clear?
Yeah, definitely, because I had never really thought about it before. Literally, we are the first generation where this is happening, right? Our parents, they never had this kind of dilemma that we have right now. And
Yeah,
especially, I think it's true for women because earlier on, women were not expected to have jobs.
yeah,
But now, almost every woman that I know, my friends, everyone has a job and they're very passionate about their career.
yeah,
And nobody is willing to give up their career for their
yeah,
marriage.
yeah.
That also can be a major issue, right? And
Right.
also, yeah, of long distance marriages, women don't have the
Yeah. So many things are changing. So many things are changing. This is one of them. Yeah, very much. I mean, the new thing that I hear from people is so many of them are questioning, do they even want to have children? This was never asked before. This was not up for discussion. But
yeah,
all of that is getting navigated. I mean, people have to really negotiate around this. Okay, do we have children or not? When do we have children? How many children? So all of this, and as we do that, marriages are, I mean, people are getting married late, children are fewer, right? So many things are changing.
yeah, that's true. Earlier on, that no, that your goal in life is to get married, have a family, settle down. That was
Hmm.
all that's expected,
Yeah,
especially
yeah,
right now. That is not the case. So that's a major thing
yeah,
that
it's a huge thing. Yeah,
right. So I
definitely.
also heard a lot of people, especially a little bit older people, keep saying that the people in our parents' generation had it better off, and now people have access to too much education. That's why we are getting worse, and that's why the rate of divorces are getting higher. Our parents' generation, people rarely got divorced, but now it's increasing a lot. So,
Yeah.
what do you think about it? Is divorce really the end of life? Do you think it's really a bad thing? That's how it's portrayed in the advice that our parents usually give us, or the mentality of the people, older people in India especially. So, what is
Yeah.
your take?
So see, every time there's a transition in the society, right? I mean, we are not the only country going through an increase in the divorces. The same thing happened in the Western world back in the 60s when women were joining workforce and divorces were increasing. Actually, the divorce rates have stabilized now, whereas we are kind of 50 years behind the Western world, where women are increasing, women are working more and more, and the divorce rates are slightly going up. It will also come down eventually. But what's changing basically is a transition. While people didn't have a choice before, people have a choice now. So what's happening is this choice element that's come. That doesn't mean people didn't want to divorce before, or that doesn't mean people were happy before, or were not unhappy before. All of this was happening. It's just that people didn't know this choice existed. And now,
Right.
for the, I mean, not it's not for the first time, but slowly that option is opening up where people are, and there are multiple changes that are happening together. So, A, you're more likely to divorce um, if you can, firstly. So, if financially you can, because a lot of women didn't divorce because they couldn't. That option didn't exist because financially they just couldn't. The second thing is, as we become more autonomous and as we become more independent, we feel more entitled to our own happiness. That didn't exist before. Nobody spoke about happiness as much as we speak about it now. Almost as if there is a tyranny of happiness, almost as if you have to make your own career, you have to make money, and you have to be happy. If you're not, what's wrong with you? Right? So when we feel as entitled to our own happiness as we feel now, we are going to do things that work for us. And that's also the reason why divorces are increasing. There's nothing good or bad, right or wrong. It just is, right? That's just how it is. Now, whether it's really good for the children or not, all of this is debatable because miserable marriages, are they really good for children? That's also a question worth asking, right? Or marriages with extreme amount of conflict. So divorce sometimes is actually a solution to a bad marriage. Sometimes it's not, sure. But there's the other thing that I have to say here, right? Because most of the people who go on this barrage or complaints against divorcing, nobody divorces as a matter of first resort. Nobody divorces as a first thing. People try everything in their power to make it work, and they divorce as a matter of last resort. And that's not changed at all. It just is. I think I lost you a little bit.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, we are back. So yeah, that's very important point that you raised because
Yeah.
earlier on people didn't have the resources also, I guess, to divorce because they
Yeah.
weren't. There's this social stigma attached to it.
Yeah.
That's why many people might have even stayed in miserable relationships because they thought it's better to be here unhappy than to be shamed by the world. But
Right.
now
Right.
getting less and less, which is hopefully a good thing because
Yeah, it's a good thing. Actually, it's not necessarily a bad thing at all.
yeah, and nowadays even women have their own jobs, so they have the financial stability so that they
Yeah.
can be independent
Yeah.
after the marriage is not their only identity, right? They have other identities,
Yeah.
which is a great option, I would say.
Yeah, that's true. I agree. Yeah.
Recently I was we discussed about this before. I read mostly fiction. So I was reading this book called Anxious People by Frederick Backman, where there is a line that says that because of the rise in dating apps today, people are consistently forced to see that they have better options than the partner
I
they are
think I'm losing you. Anangsha, I'm losing you. Like the speaker slightly is. I'm not sure if it's going to be reflected in the video or not, but I'm losing you like slightly.
let me just refresh it and see.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. I think we should be back in.
I am back again.
Yeah.
Am I audible now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I was reading this book called Anxious People by
Mhm.
Frederick Backman, where there is a line that nowadays almost everyone has a dating app on their phone, right? And that is
I'm sorry, but it's like intermittently. I think, are you using a speaker or something?
no,
Or your
not
phone? Yeah, so it's just fluctuating the volume, and I'm not sure if it's
okay.
my end.
What about now? Is it better now?
Yeah, yeah, go ahead. Like I can hear you, but it's
Yeah.
intermittently your voice is just going. So anyway,
So even now
let's
it's like now is it better now?
yeah, it's better. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know why it's happening. Anyway,
Mm.
there was a scene in that book that said that there is because people have dating apps and then they are constantly aware that there might be a better option out there, someone who
Mm-hmm.
is better than their partner, and there is this
Mm-hmm.
constant need to make a choice whether they should go for someone else or they should
Right.
go with the one that they currently have.
Right.
So not necessarily because of dating apps, in general, how communities function today. So, what do you think about it? Do you think that because of this number of options that we have and this
Mhm.
unentanglement to happiness, do you think that there is a chance that insecurity might be on the rise and people might be more likely to cheat on their partner just because they want to check out other options?
It's true that with dating apps and with technology, you have multiple options, and all of that is true. But at the core, the relationships, I mean, just because there are more options does not mean that, people won't invest in relationships. I don't think that's going to happen. It might intermittently change. The nature of those relationships might change, but people will still invest in relationships, and people will still invest in long-term relationships. And long-term relationships is not something that can be built fast, so it takes time. It is going to take time. It's just that, yeah, there is a but then something like that could be more wider than just relationships. It could be things like, technology affecting our attention span, technology affecting our patience, technology giving us these small dopamine hits that social media gives us, and so all of that also impacts other aspects of our lives. So every smart person realizes that a lot of good things in life come with patience, including relationships, right? So I mean, it's something that can only get better if you're patient about it. So most people learn this lesson. I mean, I don't see why not.
Yeah, that's very true. And like, what do you think about? Is it true that people are more likely, more people would tend more to cheat now than they would before in the previous version of relationships?
Yeah. So there are two things as far as cheating is concerned, right? It's always existed. Let's be clear. Cheating has always existed. The lure of transgression has always existed. It's just that while there were a lot more social repercussions for women before, they're much lesser now, including decriminalization of adultery, including, I mean, it's still illegal in about 9 or 10 countries where women are punished for it. But so while this has changed or is changing, what's never going to change is the fact that, I mean, cheating will remain as long as there's marriage, right? So none of that is going to change. What's changing basically now is people are more likely to talk about it, question it, and divorce because of it than before. So that's what's changed. Because if divorce was not an option, you just went with it. You just realized that, okay, and you put it on men very often because men had the social sanction for cheating for a long time. There were mistresses, everybody knew about it. Marriage was more for the economics and for companionship later in life, and or in children, and mistresses for love, right? So this was very clear in the past. It's changed now. You're more likely to divorce because of that. That's true. That's what's changed. But not the fact that there is cheating. Cheating has always existed. People are more likely to talk about it. People are more likely to have dating platforms for married people. That's more likely to happen because of technology. But that doesn't mean people are cheating now. And they were not cheating before. They were always cheating. There were more social repercussions before than there are now, and they're more likely to divorce now than they were before because of cheating. That's what's different.
Yeah, it makes sense what you say because again, it comes down to the whole thing, right? That we are more entitled, we believe we are more entitled to happiness now than we were.
Yes, very much. And you had all these kind of evolutionary logics given, and this one lens given by people that, what, women are less likely to cheat because anyway women have less desire, and men are the chronic philanderers because they need it more and they're always ready to go. And obviously they are myths. This is the first time that women have the freedom now in most parts of the world. So let's see what women do. Let's see what happens because we've not known this till now. We've had so many things restricting women that we've never really known much about women's desire. And my guess is it's not very different from men's desire. It's really not that different. So
I
we'll
have
see what's
seen,
going on.
yeah, I've seen you talk a lot about this desire in your Instagram stories also that women, it's not true that women desire sex less than men, or this is just a myth. So, as we were discussing about it before, you said that people have a very narrow definition of sex, right?
Yeah,
And it can lead to a lot of conflict. So,
yeah.
what do you think about it? What's your take on it? Like, what's your opinion about it?
So when I say that women, not just women, I mean people have a very narrow definition of sex. What I basically meant was because I work with couples going through difficulties in their sexual life, and I realized that so many of these people have a very restrictive definition of sex. The definition of sex is almost always transactional, almost always relating to performance based, almost always about finishing, and it's only about the penis and the vagina. That's it. But there's a lot more to sex. I mean, sex is an energy. Sex is eros. And what is eros? It's imagination. So where's imagination in any of this? This is so narrow, so boring. No wonder you get bored. Like, how are you supposed to have fun like this, right? So when I say people have a very narrow definition of sex, it basically means that there is no scope of imagination there. And if you don't include your mind, because humans, I mean, we're mental creatures, we live through our mind. What separates um, our erotic landscape from that of animals is the fantasies that we have. And we are also the people who could have sex and feel nothing, and do nothing and feel very erotic. Both things exist, right? So this is something that makes us unique in that respect, and that's why it's important to widen our erotic landscape to make sex more interesting, to really thrive in our relationship with our partner. That's what is going to make it a thriving relationship. I'm sorry, was that your question?
Yeah, that was my question. I know everybody has different. It's very different, right? Every couple sex life is very different.
Yes, of
But
course.
if you had to, give a very broad, generalized advice to people who are looking to improve their sex life, what would you say? Like any tips that you would give to people who are struggling to open up, or maybe struggling to make it work with their partner, especially on a sexual level. What would you say?
So there are multiple things, right? So there's first, you gotta take risk. You gotta be vulnerable. If you're not vulnerable with your partner, you cannot experience intimacy. If you don't experience intimacy, you cannot enjoy sex, right? So that's the first thing. So you got to be open. You got to be able to talk about sex. So it's important to get to develop sexual vocabulary basically with your partner. That will not happen unless you take the risk of talking first. So a lot of people start there. So what I do with my clients basically is building this vocabulary around sex. We're talking about fantasies, talking about desire, talking about pleasure, and in encompassing all of that and mixing it with sex, and not just talking mechanically. So which is why a lot of these articles online which talk about spicing up your sex life are talking about lingerie, and they're talking about sex toys, and all that is great, but that's just one thing. It's not the only thing that's going to help you. What's going to help you basically is opening yourself up first to the possibilities of experiencing different sensations, and about speaking, about including your mind, and talking about those things with your partner. So you have to start there to improve your sex life, and then of course widening the erotic landscape, not just being limited to penis and vagina and orifices and entering orifices. I mean, you got to get wider than that. You got to be more imaginative than that. So yeah, that
That
was my advice.
It's such great advice because most of the arousal is in the mind, not in the
Yes,
body.
yes,
So if you're connected with your partner on an intellectual and emotional level, I
yeah,
think your sex also would be better. Like you said, opening up and being
yeah,
vulnerable, that will
definitely,
definitely go a long way.
yeah,
That's so important advice. So many people overlook these days.
yeah. It's interesting. That's what makes my work interesting also, because there's just so much creativity involved.
Right. So I always wondered, like as a coach, how do you detach yourself from the trauma of your clients? Like there is this thing called compassion fatigue, right?
Right.
So how do you avoid feeling that?
To be honest, I have to say that I don't particularly work a lot with trauma. I mean, not extreme trauma. There's some trauma involved. A lot of times there is, but it's not. It's not the trauma of, let's say, war or things like that, right? So I'm talking about a different kind, a different degree of trauma, which is why I've never experienced compassion fatigue. I don't think so. In fact, I relate a lot with my clients. It's very easy for me to cry with my clients. That happens, not always, but sometimes it can happen, and it's. I think it's very important for me to relate to them and for them to feel understood, that I understand where they're coming from. So at least I've not experienced it personally to tell you how do you deal with. I don't have to deal with it, at least not so far.
Okay, but like you said that you cry with your clients, so doesn't it impact your mental health or your mood that somebody else's sadness is also affecting you? Doesn't it hamper your well-being?
Uh, See, crying is not always bad. Firstly, okay. So when I cry, I'm not crying because I'm feeling the same pain that the other person is feeling. It's because I'm relating to them, and relating and sharing, in my experience, is a beautiful experience. It's not a bad thing at all. Most people, if I shed a tear or if I feel their pain, if I understand it, if I hold their hands, actually feel much better. And I do too. So it's both ways. So I've not felt like it's affected my mental health, not at all. In fact, being able to understand something that the other person is going through has only helped me relate to them better.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I never thought about it that way because, like you said, crying is not always a bad thing. It doesn't
Not
mean that
that,
it just
yeah,
means you're relating with it.
yeah,
I think that's one of the most important things that separate a good coach from a bad one because you're relating to someone, you can
yeah,
give them personalized advice, right?
yeah. That's true.
So, I want to ask you something like, we're going to talk a lot about relationships. Just one relationship lesson that a long time to learn.
Um, yeah. So I'm trying to find the right word. So basically, what's taken me some time to learn basically is the relational aspect of relationships, which means that for every single thing that happens between two people, both of them are responsible. We influence each other consciously, unconsciously, and we build together. So, for example, if my partner is an alcoholic, in all likelihood, I'm enabling it somehow. I'm contributing to it. This is not to say that I'm responsible for someone else's alcoholism. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say basically is, therefore, to resolve conflicts, therefore, to understand where people are stuck, you have to see the two ways that, they both are contributing to it. It's not just one person. It's very common. In fact, the most common thing that happens in front of me when I do individual sessions with couples is both of them are pointing finger at the other. It's the most common thing that happens. I hear it day in and day out. Like, the problem is with this person because he's doing this. But you cannot really change the other person directly. How you can change the other person is when you relate to the other person differently. When you start relating to the other person differently and then they respond to that, that's how you bring about a change. That's the reason why this took me a long time to see, because it's very easy to look at the loudest voice. It's very easy to look at the person who is doing the action and ignore the person who's not doing the action. Because but there's always the undercurrent, there's always something underneath. There are always two stories. So this multiple perspectives, this systemic thinking is what it took me a long time to see this. And now that I've seen it and now that I look for it, I look for particularly that when people speak to me, I look for that in my own relationships, or and I'm in relationships, not just one relation. It's the same with my parents, it's the same with my sister, it's the same in multiple relationships that we have. What's underneath? How am I contributing to it? What can I do to change it? So there are multiple perspectives here, and I think that is relational intelligence, to be able to see multiple things that are going on together.
That's so important because most people are not able to identify these kind of patterns that they're stuck in, right? So,
And for us, our stories become gospel truths. They're not,
yeah,
right? So everything that I'm saying, the other person is saying something else. And both of us can be right, even if it's conflicting, because they're true for us, those stories. So
yeah,
yeah,
that's so
something.
So how, like, if a how would a couple know that they need a couples coach? Like when is the right time to seek coaching? What do you say?
So multiple things. See, basically, you don't always need a coach. That's the first thing to understand. A lot of times, and I say this with a lot of observation that I see in our society, especially Indian society, because I've had the good fortune to look at things globally, to look at different societies of the world and live and learn from them. We have a really good. Uh, uh, we have a really good support system in India. So if that helps, a lot of times you should talk to somebody. Doesn't matter who you speak with. Speak to somebody. Sometimes speaking to your parent will help. Sometimes speaking to a friend will help. So that's the first step, right? Second, when should people look at a relationship advice or coaching or anything like that? Not necessarily on the brink of divorce. That's the second thing, because a lot of people approach and go for coaching or marriage counseling when they think that okay, abhi to divorce hone wala hai, we're going to get divorced, and I want to save my marriage. Sometimes it's too late. Sometimes it's too difficult. Sometimes you've scarred the relationship too badly, and forgiving is very difficult. It's better to not scar at the beginning itself, and that's where coaches can help you. Because even if you sense that there are difficulties, if you sense that you're stuck, if you sense that you're not at the brink of divorce, but the relationship is not thriving, it's not working, it's a good time to see the coach. It's really a good time to ask for help.
I think mostly you would know, right, that there is a need to talk to somebody else about it. Maybe
Yes,
that's a good
absolutely.
time to seek help, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You could start with people in your life, and then if you think it's not working, seek professional help. It's always going to be good.
Most of the times you will probably know in your heart that
Yeah,
it's time
yeah,
to ask somebody else.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
So, what is a relationship advice that's commonly given that you completely disagree with?
Oh, there are so many. So where do I begin? So let's just say that it's not advice, but it's like a relationship myth that's commonly just perpetuated. So that at the beginning everything is good. There's always a honeymoon period. It's really nice at the beginning, and then it gets boring, and that's just how it is. So this is the idea. This is the concept. And then when it gets boring, I mean, that's just how it is. Live with it, resign to it. Whereas reality should be the opposite. Reality should be that when you start living with somebody, you know what? There are going to be teething problems. You're going to not know how to negotiate. You're not going to know how to communicate. You're going to build it over a period of time. So with time, your relationship should logically improve, not get worse. And you're going to have, of course, multiple, like you're going to have ups and downs. You're going to have a lot of things there. But overall, globally, things should improve, not worsen. So that's like one piece of myth that's perpetuated, and I really disagree with it. That's not how it should be, not at all. And if you look at thriving good relationships, that's not how it is. They've gotten better with time. So yeah.
And so, this might be a very broad question, but try and answer it. So, what is the most important thing that life has taught you? And how were you before learning this lesson? And how are you after?
So yeah, it's really broad question, and there can be multiple, but I think I'll probably stick with this one thing. I think courage is more important than intelligence.
Wow,
I
that's
think
so good.
that's one thing that the courage to follow through, the courage to think on your own, and take your own decisions, and of course face the consequences. I think that's much more important in life, to live a fuller life, than intelligence is. So I think that's
Wow.
one lesson. If it has made a difference in my life, I'll tell you the level of difference. Before I realized this, I was sleeping. I'm awake now. That's the level of difference this has made in my life.
Wow, that's so amazing. I am actually so inspired by this. I'm going to write it out on my wall and print it, paste it there.
Do
Because
that.
so many times we always overthink our decisions and we try to make the intelligent choice and then we end up not doing
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
Not just relationships, but every aspect of
True,
life.
true. It's true of everything. I agree. That's why it's one of the biggest breakthroughs that I had in my own life, and I realized okay, courage is much more important than intelligence, and even courage to make mistakes by that logic. That's much more important than being forever intelligent by the standards set by society. That makes no sense.
Yeah, definitely. So, what is one skill, not just maybe not related to relationships, but
Mhm.
anything, development or anything? So, what's one skill do you think every person should learn?
Um, I struggle with it myself, but I think it's discipline.
Okay, discipline.
It's discipline, no matter what it is. Because a lot of life is not about brilliant ideas and it's not about this one ingenious moment. It's really about the boring hard work. It's really about showing up each day. And I'm sure you'll agree because I've read that in your content as well, a lot of it, and I've really been inspired by that as well because you've written about that. And I think I've told you this that I've used one of your ideas, which has really helped me, which is creating of the idea board and then, writing like 10 ideas for, especially for writing each day. It doesn't matter what you write. It doesn't necessarily mean all those 10 ideas are something that, you're going to write about, but it's important to sit down each day and do that. So that's what I'm talking about. I think this is really important and I struggle with it big time. I don't think I have any moral high ground here to tell people that, what, you should do this. I just know, yeah, you should do this. I struggle with it too. It's not easy, but yeah, that's something we can aspire for and try.
Right? And most of the times people ask me that how I manage to, do these things on media. The
Yeah.
answer is always very boring. It's just write every day. There is no shortcut. You have to sit, you have to work, you have to write. There is no magic. It's just showing up every day and being consistent. I
Yeah.
think that's for every aspect of life,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely, absolutely. And it's something that I've really admired about you also because honestly, I don't know how you're able to write as much as you're able to write. And a lot of time I've kind of thought this, what, she's lying. She's been writing for 10 years. You know what? This is not possible to do it in a year. It's not possible to do it in a month. She's been doing this for 10 years. No, but I believe you, of course, when you say, and it makes a lot of sense when you say you write every day. That's just it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very boring. That process is boring. The result might seem fascinating, but it's
Yeah.
not magical. It's just boring.
That's true.
Uh,
Fair enough.
So, like when I used to read your stuff in back in 2015 on Quora, your
Mhm.
answers always had a very strong feminist message. So, what is one thing do you wish every woman knew?
Uh,
It's a very broad question,
I
but
don't. Let me try and find the words for this. Um, so basically, I think the best legacy that we as women can leave for future women, and it's probably true of men too. But since we are focusing on women, it's this idea of standing up for what we believe in, doing what we want, living our life on our own terms, even if there's no support, and following through. If we're able to do all of this, we really will teach future women that these possibilities exist. You can live for yourself. You can do what you want. So this, I think, as a legacy is very important because a lot of us didn't grow up with this. A lot of us had to struggle to find this voice. And I think that's something that it's not something that should come as a breakthrough to you. It's something that, should be your legacy. It's something that you always have with you. So I think this possibility that you can live for you the way that you want and you can follow through and you can be independent, you can have your own voice. I think that's the best legacy we can leave for future women.
that's so true, and it's very powerful. The
Yeah,
message that you see, it's very powerful.
yeah,
And just want to take a small break because people in the chat are talking about Islamophobia and all religion. We are not discussing religion here today. We are discussing relationships, navigating modern relationships, and
yeah,
personal development. We're not talking about religion at all.
yeah.
So
I agree. I'm with her. I'm with Anangsha here.
yeah, because like since 2020, not religion, but 2020 was a hard year, right, for everyone. And I used to get affected a lot by what we see on the news. So after that, I took a conscious step to not actually listen to news. So
Yeah,
now,
me too.
just
Yeah,
by looking at the trending hashtag on Twitter or by looking at memes on Instagram, because the news is always so disturbing and I just try to stay away from that.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I think I'm with you. Similarly, for me also, I've never been. Yeah, it's more so now. Yeah, reduced all of my. I've become very conscious of what I consume in terms of media. I've become
Yeah,
extremely conscious about that, and I don't want to consume content that is toxic, that is um, filled with hatred, or that's filled with conflict. I don't want that. There's so much more to life than that. So yeah.
exactly, right. Why do we need to fill our minds with hate when there is so much positivity and abundance all
Yeah,
around?
exactly. Yeah, that's why also the other thing, right? People talk about social media being toxic and things like that. My experience with social media is really good because I curate my content so well, right? I'm not going to consume anything that is so then it's just positive and it's happy and it's nice and it actually makes me feel good. So I'm happy about
Right.
that.
Yes. Same with me. I never felt that it was a bad influence because it's up to us, right? How what we take away from social
Right,
media.
exactly. Yeah.
We can control. We have that what should I say, intelligence to sort through the content that we
Right.
can consume. So it's up
Absolutely.
to us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So again, another broad question. What is one skill that you had to relearn, and why do you think every person should also relearn that? Can be a skill or can be a belief that you rewired your brain around that.
What I really had to learn and I had to really focus on is listening, active listening. And when I say listening, I don't just mean listening to words. I mean what's underneath words. If someone's using these words, what do they really mean? Because a lot of times our words are what we choose, and there are meanings behind it which are not necessarily conveyed through words. Because language is by itself is restrictive, can get restrictive. Let me put it that way. And also because a lot of us are not trained in how to speak. So a lot of times we're going to lash out or we're going to get angry, but underneath that is a need. A lot of times we're going to criticize, but underneath that is a desire. So that's what I mean when I say listening. So that is something I really had to. I still train on it. I still, day in and day out, I work on it. A few techniques that I use for that, and there's a lot of literature out there which teaches you how to listen. So I think it's very important to listen for many reasons, one of which is, you have to be open, and you cannot really take in things or learn from them if you're not listening. So that's the first thing. Second, it's very important with people and in relationships, because if you don't see what's underneath, you're only going to respond to what they're saying, and you're never going to breach and go deeper in your communication. Whereas if you listen for what are they really trying to get at, what are they really trying to say, the communication is going to improve. So there are multiple techniques that people can read about in improving listening. But there's one really simple one which I'd like to really share with people that I use a lot and that everybody should use is just a simple thing, right? If someone's saying something to you, recapitulate it and say it again. And try doing that, and you'll realize how badly we listen. Right? That's when you will see, oh God, okay. So try recapitulating that to the person, and they're going to tell you, yeah, but I didn't say this, or I didn't mean this. Right? So that's when you realize, oh wow, I really need to improve my listening. And a lot of times that also means, asking more questions or asking things like, okay, tell me more. You said this, but tell me more. And that also improves your communication. That also improves your understanding of people. There's a lot that you gain out of listening. So I think if there's one thing which I had to relearn, it's listening.
Like when you say recapping what they said and repeating them, do you mean that repeat it right now or like afterwards?
No, not repeat in the sense. So, say, let's say someone said something to you. Let someone said something that's not one sentence, right? That you can immediately repeat. I'm not talking repetition like that. But let's say someone spoke about their opinion. Let's say someone told you how they feel about something, right? Recapitulate the whole thing to them again and see the gap. Try doing that with actually somebody when you have a deeper conversation with them, because that will really show you, wow, there is such a big difference. And I've seen that with me, and I've realized, okay, I'm not listening. I really need to learn listening. So that is, I think, something that really required relearning and slowing down.
That is really valuable. I'm going to try this next time. Some because it happens with me also because we end up misinterpreting what people are saying, right? Because we are so fixated on one outcome, we try to think that they're also saying the same thing, or maybe they're saying something opposite because we feel very aggressive. But
Yeah,
when we just try and summarize what they said, maybe and then get it clarified from them, that would help
exactly.
in a very big way, right? To help us not misinterpret what they're saying.
That's true. Yeah, it's a very good skill. Everyone should learn listening.
Definitely. I'm going to read up stuff also. So, okay, another question. If somebody was willing to learn about active listening, what resources would you recommend? Some books or podcasts or whatever.
About, I missed that. If somebody was willing to learn about
Active listening.
active listening. Ah, wow. So I really don't have one podcast or one book to talk about it. But what I would suggest is just Google that, and you'll get a lot of resources, because I've been reading about this for a long time, and I've gone through, and I think most of the help that I got was through articles that people had written. So it's more about that. But I don't really have one podcast or one book which talks about listening. And there are multiple sources. So listening is something that you will also you will get content in relationships, right? Because there's a lot of heart to heart that happens in relationships. You'll also get a lot of content in corporate world, in meetings, and how do you speak. So there are two aspects to speaking itself. A major aspect of speaking is listening. So even in that context, you will get a lot of content, because I've read it in that context as well.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely true. If you're interested, you can just Google and then you dive deeper, you are going to learn more. Right?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I can't think of like one thing.
No,
I wish
that's
I could.
okay.
I can't think of one thing.
It's same with me. If you ask me some random topic and tell me where to learn, mostly it's the same because it's not from one resource. It's from a combination of several resources over several years. So
Yeah. And I've
that's
seen I've seen one of, I think one of your stories that you had, I've seen the number of tabs that were open while you were researching to write an article. So I think it's along those lines. Basically, when you read about something, you're going to find those many resources. I think I'll just ask you to skim through them all to get the best out of it.
definitely. So we have a question from the audience because we're talking about filtering the negativity in social media, right? Only consuming content that inspires us. So the question is how to filter that negativity on social media or news or in general content you consume.
Right. So stay away from politics. Let's be very honest. It's extremely polarized now everywhere in the world. It's not just India. It's everywhere. Most parts of the world. Let's put it that way. It's very polarized. So I think that would be step one. Step two probably would be. I mean, depending on what kind of art you like. You know, some people like visual arts. Like I am a huge fan of music and dance. So most of the profiles that I follow, let's say on Instagram, are these new artists, you know, upcoming artists who are trying to do, and it's incredible what they're doing. So I think things like that is nice, or things like, you know, digital. They're the content creators in the world, right? I mean, in on Instagram, you will find a lot of people talking about things that interest you, and as long as they're not politics or, you know, these conflict-ridden things, even religion is included in that. You'll get a really, like, your content, for example, where you talk about books. That's positive. That's really, really good. That's helped me so much. There are these, you know, you've written also about, I remember reading that, I'm noting it down, because it really helped me, about how do you improve your reading.
Yeah.
You've written about that, and the tips that you have to give, you know, when you read something, all of that is positive. So follow contents, I mean, follow really profiles like that and things like that. That's just identify the art that you're interested in and follow, or sport. That's probably also peaceful for the most part.
Right. So that question we had was from Devangana. So she's just rephrased the question. So it's like how to filter out the negativity directed at you.
Okay. Hi, Devangana. Thank you so much for the question. Um, how do you filter out the negativity directed at you? So,
I think that's very important for women on the internet, right? Because we get a
yeah,
lot of hate.
that's true. So anyway, the thing that I used to really do before, and I really recommend everybody, is block, report. If somebody is being an ass to you, just block and report that person. That's a good way to go about it. And also internally, you got to create a distance between yourself and what you read online about yourself. Those two are very different things. And you as a person are constantly evolving. And when people look at you, they look at just one thing and they box you down into that box that they've built, and they're going to talk about that. So, I mean, this is something that helped me basically stay away from negative comments, because you know what? I keep changing my opinion anyway. So let's not take anybody's opinion so seriously. And if somebody's boxing you, or somebody's just directing hate towards you, just block and report. That's how
That's
to go.
exactly what I do.
I really find it very deeply satisfying, because you can't really do that in real life, right? You can't do that in person, like one to one. You can't block somebody. You can get away from the situation, but then it's just so much satisfying to press that button online. Wow, I have this option. Let me use it. Petty revenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Never see their face again. So,
Exactly.
win-win. That's very true. Even I do the same thing. On Medium, if I get trolls, I just clap
You do
50.
read from a medium too?
Not as much as other platforms, but sometimes there are a few
Mm-hmm.
meaningless hate and just comments directed at your profile picture that about your physical features. Meaningless hate.
Yeah,
So I just clap 50 times. I ignore. I don't even block. It's like they don't deserve that much time. I will just ignore
fair
them.
enough. Fair enough.
I think I've spent a long time online to know that it's very important to detach because you can't let all these affect you. Otherwise, you would never be able to be
Fair enough.
happy. Because there's too much hate anyway in the world,
Yeah,
right? You can't let other people's opinions affect you so much.
that's true. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That works for praise also because if you receive too much praise, it will get to your head and you will have a hard time. If you have something that's really successful, you will
Yeah,
have a hard time recreating that. If you are so attached to the success, you will try to replicate that kind of success. If it doesn't happen, you will get demotivated.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
comments and the bad comments both, it's always good for you and in the end.
I think that's really a thing that'll happen to you if you really create as much content as you do, because you can't really always have the same kind of success with every article, right? Or anything else for that matter, with every video. So yeah, you're absolutely right that you got to have an objective view and kind of detach yourself from
Yeah.
that
You have to
filter.
remember your goal, why you're doing it. My
Yeah,
goal is to at least leave some kind of impact on the people who are reading or watching. So that's why
right.
I write. That's why I create content. So I'm going to do that. Even if one person is reading, I would still do it. So
Yeah.
that's okay. Ultimately, the views and the everything else don't matter as much as the need to create content, right?
Yeah. I think it's a beautiful thing what you said, that even if it's one person who, like, as long as your goal is clear for you,
Yeah.
and that's really good. Actually, you took away my question and you just answered it, so I'm really happy on your own, because I was going to ask you that, like, what's your goal? What's your motivation to keep creating content? Because A, it's not easy. B, you also have a day job, right? I've read it somewhere. So you're juggling here so many things. So yeah, that's incredible. Thanks so much for answering it, Dharmi, asking you that question. I wanted to know your motivation.
I have that target audience in mind, like mostly uh, people who are feeling a little bit lost regarding some aspect of their life. And if I can
Mhm.
help them even give a different perspective, I can't help them out of the struggles, but I can give them a different perspective. So if I can do that to at least one person, I think that's enough for me. I would be happy in that way. So
Yeah, and that's really beautiful. That's really nice. It's positive.
definitely. So it was really great talking to you. I learned a lot. I am going to watch this video again and make some notes. And I'll probably write an article about it and share it with you because it was really eye-opening for me.
I would be a pleasure. Yeah, thanks so much. I would really be like kind of flattered if you do that. But yeah, because I read your content, so I'll be happy if you do that.
So
That's
before we close this, I have one more question to ask you. So as a person, what is the highest compliment someone can give you that would make you really happy?
uh I think the best compliment that I receive is through my work, which is like when people feel really understood and when people feel like you've made a positive impact on their lives and they say that. I think that's really, really, like, that's the best compliment you can have. It's the
That's
same as you, right? If you can just touch one person positively, it's plenty.
yeah,
It's a lot. Yeah. So I think it's that. Yeah.
that's wonderful. I mean, I work so hard in giving that message, and then sometimes people give completely different kind of comments like nice dress or nice
Oh yeah.
lipstick.
Tell
It doesn't
me
make any
about it.
sense because we're not promoting that, we're promoting the message, right? So that's why I wanted to know what's your opinion on this, the highest compliment.
Yeah. I
So
think this is it. Yeah.
that's great. So is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wish I had asked you?
Not at the moment. I think I really enjoyed talking to you. It was really nice.
Same here.
So
I had a lot of fun and a lot of
yeah,
eye-opening moments.
we should connect. And if you're ever in my part of the uh, of India, you should we should meet actually. I don't know if you come to Pune often or not, but
So I have actually never been to Pune, but I've been to Mumbai a few times.
okay. So I mean, I keep traveling to Mumbai. So if you're ever around, I don't mind coming there. It would be really nice to meet. And I know I think we probably have some common friends in Pune, of Kora, but
Oh
it
yeah,
would
maybe definitely. Yeah. Kora is like that place where I started my writing, so I'm always grateful.
yeah. When did you start writing on Quora?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
When did you start writing on Quora? Like which year?
2014.
Okay, yeah. So way back. Yeah, I started I think
14 and 15.
12 or 13. Yeah, yeah, makes
Okay.
sense.
I was in my final year of college at that time. So 15 mainly I started because that was in my final semester. So I
Mm-hmm.
wrote a lot in 2015.
Right, right. But Quora has given me a lot of good friends too. I'm really thankful for that. So
Same
yeah,
with me.
including so
So thank you so much for doing this, for taking out time and answering my questions. It was a really nice experience for me. I'm very happy that we got to do this.
yeah. Thanks so much to you. Yeah. It was really nice talking to you as well.
Thank you. We'll definitely keep in touch.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we'll check out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
All right. Bye. What do I leave it, right? Leave studio,
So
I think.
I'm going to remove you from the screen for now.
All right.
So that was Tejasvita Apte for you guys. And thank you so much. You have been a great audience. Thank you for the insightful questions. And thanks for watching. It has been a really long talk. I was thinking maybe it would be over in half an hour, but we had such a great conversation that I just lost track of time. So thank you so much for watching. I will leave the links to connect with Tejasvita on her website and her Instagram and Quora. So make sure you check out her work. So thanks for watching. I'll be again soon with a new guest, a new talk. So thanks for watching. Have a great rest of the day. Bye.